Next question today. Hey, David, many of the top contenders for the Democratic 2020 nomination are pretty old. I'm not being ageist, but should Democrats consider age when they choose their 2020 candidate? The answer is yes, in the sense that age is a reasonable factor to consider, right? Bernie Sanders, I'm going from memory, but in 2020, or maybe at the time of the inauguration, roughly, I don't know. Bernie's going to be 79, close to 80. Joe Biden, another presumed frontrunner, 78, will be. Michael Bloomberg, who has switched back to the Democratic Party, 78, I believe, would be at the time. John Kerry would be in his upper 70s, even though he said he doesn't have any plan to run. Elizabeth Warren would be 71, which is comparatively young relative to these other contenders. This is arguably more about perception than it is in terms of the impact as far as actual health. Most of these individuals, to the extent that we know, are probably as healthy, if not healthier, than Donald Trump, who is obese, quite frankly, or borderline obese by within a pound or two of being borderline obese, depending on which numbers you believe. Eats very unhealthily, has a very unhealthy lifestyle. So it's not really about the impact that age would have on their ability to do the job. For me, it's more about the perception to need to change the guard of the Democratic Party. The quote, old guard of the Democratic Party, and by that, I mean people who have been around for a while, but also just people who are older and haven't necessarily been around as long, like Elizabeth Warren. They are seen as part of the problem of what happened in the 2016 Democratic primary, fairly or unfairly. I would argue in some cases fairly, in some cases a little bit less fairly. Bernie Sanders, of course, the exception to that because he was the victim of what happened in the 2016 Democratic primary. Other than Bernie, I'm not sure that anybody on that list really gives the perception of changing the guard. I know Elizabeth Warren's political positions are almost as left as Bernie's, but she is seen much more as establishment Massachusetts Democrat, um, also because of her background, her corporate background, than Bernie Sanders is. Bloomberg used to be a Democrat, now is back to being a Democrat. There's not too many more establishment type people than Michael Bloomberg. He's another super rich old white guy. And that's the sort of, you need another guy like Trump to fight Trump, but Trump would mop the floor with Michael Bloomberg, quite frankly, rhetorically, with his insult games and his tweets and his nicknames. But Democrats shouldn't fall for the whole we need a fresh faced youngster thing because it resonates really loudly with other young voters. The idea of, I mean, I don't think anybody's talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez running for president, but other young Democrats, Joaquin Castro, for example, I don't know who else, but you need votes from Democrats and moderates, independents in a lot of parts of the country where those youngsters are not going to be as appealing. Now, without endorsing anyone, I don't even know who's running, okay? But I understand the appeal of someone like Sherrod Brown strategically. He's interesting because he won't be close to 80 at the time of the inauguration. He's in his mid 60s right now. He has experience. He's a reasonable progressive. He's not the most progressive guy, but he's a reasonable progressive. He's from the Midwest, which will appeal to another set of voters, and he would not be subject to successful attacks against him along certain lines that some other people would. Now, politically, I still line up way more, you know where I'm going, with Bernie Sanders. And I would be likely to support Bernie Sanders in the primary if he ran. But there's a part of me that's wondering about Sherrod Brown, although it's unclear if he can handle Trump's games. And that is an open question.